Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tackling the Divorce Journey, knowledge to empower you through the divorce process. We're so excited that you're here with us. We're going to give everyone just another minute to make sure we've got a few more people on, and then we'll get started. All right. So this is one more time the webinar Tackling the Divorce Journey, knowledge to empower you throughout the divorce process. This webinar is put on by Gentry Law Firm, and we are so excited to be joined today by psychotherapist Cristina María de Gesù and broker and realtor Julie Robinson. I think we'll have a lot of really great information for you guys today. So Cristina is a multilingual psychotherapist and holds a Master of Arts degree in clinical psychology. She specializes in trauma, anxiety, couples therapy, and narcissistic abuse treatment. She's trained in EMDR and practices an eclectic mix of orientations, which combines internal family systems, EMDR, and psychodynamic approaches to the human experience. She comes from a rich multicultural background and has worked with diverse populations. She is passionate about authenticity and resilience of the human spirit and aims to provide an environment where her patients can not only feel seen and understood, but also challenged to accomplish their therapeutic goals at their own pace. Her greatest joys are her strong Catholic faith, her 4 children, close friendships, her crazy boxer Leia, and traveling. And now, just as a quick note, I will send out an email to all of the attendees today after the webinar is over, with the ways that you can contact any of the wonderful panelists today if you decide you'd like to use them for one of their services. Bill Gentry is the founder of the Gentry Law Firm in Marietta, Georgia. He's been practicing law in the state of Georgia since 1986, and his primary focus is divorce and family law cases, including high asset property division, child custody, and alimony. Bill has tried hundreds of cases in state and federal courts throughout Georgia and currently serves as the treasurer of the State Bar of Georgia. He's also an Amazon best-selling author of the Forbes book, I Want Out, A Woman's Guide to Finding Peace Through Divorce. He knows that divorces are scary and things can get messy, and one spouse can often come at a disadvantage at first. He and his team of attorneys work to correct this by securing fair results, equitable division, and a smooth transition into your next chapter. And now finally, we've got Julie Robinson, an accomplished realtor with over 2 decades of experience serving the Metro Atlanta real estate market. She embarked on her real estate journey in the year 2000, and in 2011, Julie further elevated her real estate expertise by earning her real estate broker's license. Throughout her career, Julie has been the proud recipient of numerous accolades, including 2 Shooting Star Awards, Team Agent of the Year Award, Individual Producer Awards, as well as 2 prestigious Platinum Club Awards, which underscore her dedication and excellence in the field. Julie's passion for real estate transcends her professional life. She loves real estate, investing, and has renovated and flipped several single-family homes. Julie's clients benefit not only from her extensive knowledge, but also from her nurturing approach, and she relishes the opportunity to guide her clients through the intricate process of buying or selling a home. So like I said, we've got an excellent panel for you guys today. We are going to get started with Cristina. Cristina, would you like to go ahead and share your presentation?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys for having us, and thank you to all the participants who are here. I'm going to go ahead and share this slideshow. And Elizabeth, if you would just let me know that that's up and running.
That is all good.
Awesome. All right. So our topic for today, in terms of the psychological aspects, is navigating narcissism. And what I wanted to let everybody know is that as psychotherapists, we don't ever, in any case, not in divorce or in any other situation, make decisions for you as to what you should or should not do, right? That's the part of the work of therapy is uh, that you can come to your own conclusions and your own decisions, and that you have the freedom to choose what is best for you in any situation. And so today, what I'm going to be talking about is specifically narcissism because uh, it is really on the rise. And if you look at the screen, you will see an icy mountain. And the reason that I chose this particular photo as the backdrop is that this is exactly kind of what it feels like when you're navigating narcissism. You're going through a very cold, very lack of empathy relationship. And you can see here and there that there's some spots without ice, without snow. And those are the times where things in the relationship seem like it's okay, but all in all, you see that there's a lot more snow than there is solid terrain. And so what we're going to talk about is several different types of narcissism and what that entails. So this is an antagonistic personality style, okay? What we're looking at is somebody that is pretty much constantly picking a fight. The main precursor to narcissism is a lack of empathy. This is basically not being able to put themselves in your shoes. They also have this sense of entitlement, the arrogance, the egocentricity. And then the buzzwords that we've heard and that we've been hearing for several years now are the manipulation. So the gaslighting, which is basically breaking down your reality. This is a very damaging form of emotional manipulation. They strategically intend to break down your view of reality. It's the proverbial crazy making. And so, you know, saying things like, oh, that never happened, or you're making such a big deal out of this. Uh, those are hallmark gaslighting statements. Why are you so sensitive? I don't, you don't know what you're talking about. You should see a therapist, things like that. Breadcrumbing is another form of manipulation, and that is when you get just enough attention, just enough uh, what looks like love, right? Because there is this notion that narcissists actually don't have the capacity to love. And I know that that sounds harsh. I know that we like to think that everybody has the capacity to love, but there can be no capacity to love if there is no empathy. And empathy is the main thing that is missing. And so breadcrumbing is basically when you're given just enough attention, which can look like love, just enough validation, just enough to kind of keep you going. And what happens at the very beginning of the relationship is love bombing, right? And that it's not listed here, but the love bombing is another buzzword. And that is when uh, you're put on a pedestal. Everything seems like it's too good to be true. And that's done purposely, and it's meant to hook you in emotionally, right? Those neurotransmitters in your brain, those feel good chemicals, basically get you hooked onto this person before you can find out who they really are. Uh, and then little by little, you're starved of that affection and you're starved of that attention and you're starved of that connection, but you're still hooked onto this person because your brain is still going, well, wait a minute, this is what it was like back then, so I know that person is like that. I know that that's possible. When in fact, it's really a mask. Um, Hoovering is After they've discarded you, just like a vacuum, they try to, take you back. And then the main mechanism here that we have is what we call DARVO, which is deflection, attack, reversing the victim and the offender. So they'll blame you, they will then attack you, and then they'll make themselves out to be the victim. Um, the incessant validation and admiration seeking, there's a superficiality, again, that absolute incapacity for intimacy. Intimacy requires vulnerability, and narcissists do not make themselves vulnerable. Why? Because narcissism is deeply rooted in shame, and they cannot let anybody see who they really are because they actually are very ashamed of themselves. They think that they are bad people. And so they always have this mask, uh, and they very rarely allow themselves to be vulnerable. So these are the hallmark traits of narcissism in general. Now, we do need to distinguish between narcissistic personality disorder and narcissism. It is not the same thing. Somebody can be a narcissist without having narcissistic personality disorder. And a person with narcissistic personality disorder does have the same qualities of a narcissist. So the fabric is similar. The base and the foundation is the same. At their core is an extreme lack of self. Okay. So these are people that look put together on the outside, but inside it's kind of hollow. So it's like a little shell, right? And then that foundation of extreme shame. The same patterns exist, the lack of empathy, the grandiosity, the manipulation, the dysregulation of emotions. The narcissists are people that are very, very, very thin-skinned, either people with NPD or pure narcissists. They both are people with very, very thin skin. The crucial difference between somebody that has NPD and a pure narcissist is that people that suffer from NPD, they know that there's something not just quite not right about them. And this causes them to have difficult relationships. So somebody with NPD is more likely to say, yeah, I don't know why. I know there's something about me, but I don't know why. I just can't have a normal, healthy relationship. A pure narcissist will never say that. They do not think that there's anything wrong with them at all. Everything is somebody else's fault all the time. Whereas the person with NPD does have a little bit of insight into their own maladaptive psychological behaviors and psychological thinking. So a person with NPD is more likely to seek therapy, but even then, the percentage of these people that I see in practice is very, very low, which is why most of the research says that narcissism is very rare. That we have found that is not the case. It used to be that the literature showed that about 2% of the population had narcissistic tendencies, narcissistic personality disorder, or were straight pure narcissists. That is not the case. It is actually more like 20%, sometimes even 30%. And it has definitely been exacerbated by the onset of social media. It's much more trendy to be narcissistic nowadays. It's much more acceptable. And so people don't get judged as often for being egocentric and self-seeking that way. But the reason that we know that the rates are higher is because, and this is my experience in private practice, is that we see all the people that suffer as a result of the narcissist. So The spouses, the daughters, the sons, the mothers, the family members, the aunts, the uncles, the friends, the people that work for them. They're the ones coming into therapy and talking about all this type of invalidation and manipulation. And that's how we know that it is actually more like average 20% of the population, not 2. All right. So today we're going to talk about 4 subtypes of narcissism and how to identify them. And no, we know that there are actually 8 subtypes. Um, and these subtypes are not mutually exclusive. So people can have a combination of 2, maybe even 3 subtypes. They can flip-flop back and forth between between these subtypes. So we're going to concentrate on these 4 that you see here, and we'll start with the spotlight seeker. This is your run-of-the-mill typical narcissist. Um, this is your grandiose, this is your larger than life, this is your overt narcissist. This is the one that comes to mind when the word narcissism is mentioned. They thrive on admiration. They need to be the center of attention. They really do have a very inflated sense of self-importance. They will sometimes literally say, oh yeah, like I know that I'm better than that person. Like I know that I'm just better than some people. Um, and the other key for this one is the charm. The charm, the charisma. They can be very funny, very gregarious, very outgoing. They draw people in. And then, the other hallmark is how defensively and aggressively they react when their grandiosity is challenged. So again, all narcissists are very thin-skinned. And so this specific type of narcissist is very easy to detect. Your tips to look for are the admiration seeking and the strong sense of self-importance. So you'll see this person just totally puffed up and oh, this and that. And they'll talk about who they know and they'll talk about the things that they've accomplished. And, they'll do the humble brag but they're actually boasting. So you'll see a lot of that with this type of person, and they are pretty easy to pinpoint. They're the ones where that you kind of you say, oh, they're so nice, but there's just something about them. It's like, ugh, something will rub you the wrong way. And that's your grandiose narcissist. The next one is the silent schemer. This is what we call the covert or vulnerable narcissist. These people don't seek the limelight. These people often operate behind the scenes. They look like they're humble, they look like they're modest, and they can be very self-deprecating. The main driver of this type of narcissism is a sense of inadequacy, right? And so these are the people that will usually say they still have that grandiosity, mind you. The grandiosity is across the board, but it shows up in different ways. And so here what you'll see is somebody that says, oh yeah, I could have totally been the CEO of that company. I just couldn't, nobody gave me a chance. Nobody gave me a break, right? So these are the people that normally say that they've had it so difficult in life and, that they're so wonderful, but that they just never got a chance to thrive, and they never got a chance to really show the world what they're made of. And they're always kind of, feeling sorry for themselves in a grandiose way, if that makes sense. And these types are very, very hard to distinguish. If you are not a clinician, it is very difficult for the layperson to 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 come in contact with one of these people and to say, oh, I know what that is. And so the the keys to watch out for here is the victim mentality and the manipulation. So um, their manipulation will look more like guilt tripping you or making you feel like, you don't care about them. And, oh, I guess you must not want to have anything to do with me. And, oh, yes, things like that. That's what you'll see with this one. It can look like it can look like codependence, but it's not. It is covert narcissism. And the reason behind that is because they still have a sense of grandiosity and they still have a lack of empathy. Okay. So those are the two things that you will see across the board. The next one is the villain. These people are vicious. This is the most dangerous subtype of narcissism. This is what we call the malignant narcissist. These people are out for revenge. These people have a combination of the lack of empathy and traits that are associated with antisocial personality disorder. When we talk about antisocial personality disorder, we are not talking about people who don't like to go to parties. We're talking about people who do not have any respect for authority. So, antisocial personality disorder is what we usually see with criminal behavior. Okay. They have no qualms about exploiting people. They have no qualms about destroying people's lives, um, slandering people. They have a sadist quality to them. And that's the difference between the factor that comes in there with the antisocial traits and behavior is the sadistic nature. They will step on whoever they need to step on to get ahead. They are vindictive. They are exploitative, and they do have a desire for power, and they don't care what mechanisms they employ in order to get it. All right. These individuals are also very, very, very difficult to pinpoint. Um, the reason for that is because they are also very charming, and very deceitful. Much more deceitful than the grandiose and the covert. There's a lot of lying with with all narcissists, but malignant narcissists do so very, very intentionally, very, very willingly, and without any remorse at all. None. And that's where that lack of empathy comes back in this subtype. And then finally, the fourth type that we have today is the antagonist, basically. This is somebody that is always picking a fight. This is somebody that is never content with anything. Their main trait is to prove you wrong, to contradict anything and everything that you say. They're very aggressive verbally, and they gain a sense of superiority by putting other people down and by creating conflict. Normally, in all human beings, anger is an emotion that can give you a quote unquote good feeling, a dopamine hit. Why? Because anger brings about a feeling of power. And so that's what the antagonist narcissist thrives on. It's the feeling of power through competition and aggressiveness that they get that dopamine hit in, and they view other people as rivals, and so they constantly engage in that confrontational behavior because it inflates their sense of self by making them feel powerful. So again, we're seeing the grandiosity, we're seeing the lack of empathy that is that common thread and that foundation for all of them. These are the people that you'll probably be able to pinpoint and be like, oh God, that guy's really full of himself, or she's really full of herself. You'll be able to figure them out a little more easily than the covert or the malignant. But they're not as easy to pinpoint as the grandiose. the things to watch out for here are the competitiveness and the aggression and just the antagonism.
All right, Christina, I think we are running out of time. If you can wrap it up quickly, and then we'll move on to the next section.
Absolutely. So safeguarding your sanity is incredibly important. Dealing with codependency, looking at these red flags and not ignoring them. These red flags are your exit ramps, right? Knowing who you are and then not being afraid to stand up for yourself. And I'll just move through those because they're kind of self-explanatory. And then if you want the PowerPoint, we can email that out to you. But knowing yourself and who you are and what you've lived through is the most important thing here. Narcissists thrive on shattering your reality. And if you can ground yourself in your reality and not what the narcissist says, then you are definitely ahead of the game, knowing that you are loved, created with intrinsic value and dignity and purpose, and validating your own experience. Definitely therapy. This is not something, narcissism and narcissistic abuse is not something that is, it's incredibly damaging and traumatic. And so find yourself a good therapist and know who you are. Speak up for yourself, and then I will end with that and let y'all ask questions later on so that we can give Julie and Bill some time.
Thank you so much, Christina. And again, we'll send out an email after this is all finished today with everyone's contact information. And if you'd like some more of the materials that some of the speakers shared, we're happy to provide that as well. I also wanted to mention, if you have any questions at any point during these presentations, click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And at the very end of today's presentation, I will read them aloud to the speakers and they will answer them. All
And
right.
I do want to end with this. A lot of these things you will notice, not just in the relationship, but as you navigate through, maybe if you're separated or contemplating the divorce. And these are the things to really let your lawyer know. Let your lawyer know about these things, because also in court, do not tell the judge that you're married to a narcissist. That's not going to fly. And so I'm going to let Bill speak to that a little bit more.
All right. That's great. Bill, if you want to go ahead, and if you all can see my screen.
Yep.
All right. Great.
So Christina, that was truly amazing. To hear you talk about this and break it down, when I hear an expert like you talk about it, I can kind of dovetail the information that you give with my own personal experience of having listened to thousands of people over the years talk about the narcissist or the folks with narcissistic personality disorders that they're married to. Well, let me, like Elizabeth said, Gentry Law Firm, we've been practicing family law since 1986, handling thousands of cases over these years. And we really pride ourselves on being true partners with our clients, with a strong focus on providing compassionate legal care in complex cases and crafting customized resolutions and strategies for the unique needs of our clients. We don't believe in and don't practice cookie cutter law. We don't just assume that your case is just like the one before and just like the one afterward. We sit down with you, we work with you, we think it through. What we've done over the years is developed a process that we call DARE. And DARE is, it's a 4-stage process that we've created over the years. The D stands for discovery. And this is the first part, and in some respects, the most important part, where we discover or gather information about your situation, your financial situation, the dynamics of your marriage to your spouse, your children, and we learn all of that. And there's really 2 aspects to the discovery process, what I call informal and formal discovery. Informal is the things that you've heard your spouse talk about, the things that you know, to the extent you get any mail in the U.S. mail anymore, letters you may see sitting around, periodic bank statements or retirement account statements, things that you have kind of gleaned from your marriage. Once the divorce case is filed, we can engage in something called formal discovery. And that's a way to force or compel both your spouse and third parties by subpoena process to give us the information we need to form a complete picture of what's going on with all of these different aspects of the divorce. And it may be your spouse's employment file. It may be bank account statements, credit card statements. It may be 401k, pension statements, things like that. We can also take depositions, which is bringing in people, perhaps the paramour, the boyfriend or girlfriend of your spouse, bring them in and ask them difficult questions so that we can learn more and really form a good overall picture of what's been going on in your financial life, the dynamics of your personality, relationships with children. That takes us to the second step of the DARE process, and that's analysis. And this is where all of us, your whole team, that would be you, the lawyer, the paralegal, the legal assistant, will sit down and we will churn through all this information. We will evaluate it. We will prepare a marital balance sheet, but we talk about the marriage assets that need to be divided. We will talk about the pluses and whether there's a claim for alimony here and the basis and what we think might happen if we went to court. Because the vast majority of divorce cases don't actually go to court, but what we do is based on the county we're in and the judge that your case is assigned to, we look at what we think the assigned judge would do, and then we reverse engineer what we think the settlement ought to be. And the more your lawyer knows about how the judge views particular situations, the better the lawyer is going to be able to say, okay, we think this is probably the best outcome. We would love to settle your case either by private discussions with your spouse's lawyer, by going to mediation, and in the rare occasions when going to trial is necessary, we'll be ready because we've done the discovery and we've done the analysis, and we're very transparent in how we do this analysis with you so that you're part of this process. If you have questions, if you say, well, what's a marital balance sheet? What's a domestic relations financial affidavit? What's a parenting plan? And I'll talk about the parenting plan in more detail later. These are all things where, again, with regard to you, we want to be very transparent and have you involved at every stage of the process because, you know, at the end of this case, it's going to be your life and that of your children going forward. So we want you to be as invested as possible. So the third stage is resolution. That we touched on that a minute ago, whether it's trial or mediation or private settlement. And so what we do as we go through discovery and analysis and are talking with you is we're forming ranges of opinions as to what we think the judge would likely do to get your case resolved if we had to go to trial. And again, it's very unusual that these cases are tried, but it does happen, and I've tried hundreds of cases. So we know how to do it. We also know how to avoid it when it's not necessary by settling at mediation and otherwise, getting you ready for mediation, getting you ready, having you really well versed in the issues going on. Because ultimately, our final goal in this whole process is the fourth step, empowerment. What we really want to do is to empower you to live your best life going forward. And part of that begins while the divorce case is going on, as we talk with you, as we look at what your goals are. Do you want to have primary custody of the children? Have you sacrificed your earning capacity to move around as your spouse got better and better jobs? Well, you're a good candidate for alimony, either short-term or even sometimes permanent alimony could still be appropriate under these circumstances. So to empower you to live your best life after the divorce, we start working on those things, integrating those things into our analysis and resolution to empower you to have that best life possible. And what we want to do too is talk about all of the different things that you can do after the divorce. You know, whether it's, you're going to buy a house, whether you may want to move to a different area, whether you anticipate having problems with your then ex-spouse in terms of getting your ex-spouse to comply with either the settlement agreement that we reach or the judge's final order of divorce that sets out all the parameters of what you guys have to do. We talk about filing a motion for contempt. And that's where you can haul your ex-spouse up in front of the judge and say, Judge, he or she has not done what they've been ordered to do. Please make them do this. Or let's say there's a change of circumstances. Maybe you need more child support, or maybe your spouse has changed jobs and is making a whole lot more money where more child support would be appropriate, or the converse. If you're the one paying child support and you've lost your job or you've had to downgrade, and we've seen this when the economy has hit bumps in the past, we talk about asking for a modification of child support, a modification of alimony. What if your child turns 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old and says, hey, I want to live with the other parent? We talk about things like that can be done, or how we might resist those kinds of things in the future. So that's the E part of empowerment, how you live your best future. And I know in the context of a lot of this, we get a lot of what we call frequently asked questions, FAQs. And so we've got a number of FAQs that we want to talk about now for a few minutes. And remember, we'll have time for your own questions after Julie's presentation in a few minutes. But one of the biggest things that we have people talk about is, Bill, how do I get custody of my kids? I want to talk a little bit about what custody means, because it's one of those terms that everybody thinks they know about, but there's a legal definition that's a little bit different from what the popular definition of that term is. So in custody, there are two parts of custody. There's legal custody, and then there's physical custody. Legal custody is which parent has final decision-making authority over different areas of the child's life: education, medicine, social activities, religion, okay? Physical custody is where does the child actually spend their time on a day-to-day basis? You know, is it a 4-3 situation where the child rotates back and forth? What about holidays? What about birthdays? And with younger kids, sometimes Halloween is an issue. What about time in the summer? All of these things are discussed. Where possible, we create a parenting plan. And the parenting plan will set all of this stuff out in great detail. And we can also put some rules out there about, you know, what is appropriate and inappropriate conduct in front of the kids. And people say, okay, great. I want to have primary physical custody. How do I do that? All right. Well, think about the things. Again, this is where the whole concept of reverse engineering a settlement based on what we think the judge would do at trial comes into play. So who is the person who's the primary caregiver of the children now? Okay. And you may say, gosh, I travel all the time, so I'm really not there. Okay. Well, when you're in town, okay, are you the primary caregiver? If you're not, you need to be thinking about that as a possibility of changing your schedule, changing your job, being there more for the kids. And sometimes you have to realize, well, maybe I'm not going to be the primary caregiver because my spouse has really been doing that. And then we try to maximize your parenting time, your visitation with the kids. What are the other things that you can do? Show your level of involvement with the children. For younger kids, do you make sure they get their baths at night, their food? Do you get them up and feed them breakfast and get them to school? Do you make sure they do their homework? All of those little things. And guess what? Because I'm a lawyer, I love paperwork. Document it. Even if it's digital, document it, okay? Because let me give you a scenario. If you're actually sitting on the witness stand at a trial and you've got the documentation of how you've done all of these things, your spouse has probably not had that level of documentation. And the judges, you're going to be much more credible to the judge. And again, working backwards to reverse engineer the settlement, these are things that matter. So our next question that we wanted to talk about is keeping your house. A lot of folks say, keeping my house is a really high priority. And I will tell you, in my experience over decades of doing this, the number one criterion that the judge looks at is who will have primary custody of the kids. Because the judge is under mandate by law to do what is in the best interests of the children. And stability is in the best interest of the children, which means, if possible, leave the kids in the house. Does that mean mom moves out? Does that mean dad moves out? Could be, but if it's possible for the primary custodial parent to keep the house, that's what the judge is most likely to do. Now understand that when we get to the point of dividing up assets between the parties, the equity in the house could be a very big number. And what the judge has to do is to divide up the assets between the parties in a fair way. And so as we reverse engineer a settlement, we've got to be looking for, if you want to keep the house, what assets are you willing to give up? Now, it may be that your spouse has a large pension or a 401k or an IRA, and you may have to make that decision. Do I let them have some or all of that so that I can keep the house and the values balance out? So these are things that we have to keep very close tabs on as we go through this analysis and resolution process. So our third question is gaining access to your finances. We kind of touched on this earlier, and we do that through the informal and formal discovery process. But at the end of this, the judge, and by reverse engineering a settlement, we who become authors of the settlement are looking at dividing up things fairly between the two of you, which doesn't always mean exactly equal, but it does mean what's fair under all the circumstances. A couple other things I want to touch on briefly before I wrap things up. So that people talk about private investigators, and private investigators can be helpful. Do you think your spouse is cheating? Okay, we can talk about whether it makes sense to spend the money to hire a private investigator. Forensic accountants, they can be very helpful, especially in a situation where you or your spouse are together, you own a business. We have to figure out the value of the business. We have to figure out all of the money that's going in and out, what the fair representation of income and expenses are. And finally, a business valuation expert, him or herself, who really can kind of bring this home. So we use all of these tools to help get to a point where we can empower you to have the best life possible going forward. So in closing, I want to thank you for sitting here and listening to this. I want to let you know, if you'd like to have a further conversation with us, here's the contact information on the screen. I'm very excited to now turn the reins over to Julie Robinson, who is an outstanding realtor and is going to really give you some great information going forward. Julie?
Thank you, Bill. Wow, what great information. I love hearing that you guys not only help people through divorce, you actually help them after the divorce as well. That's pretty amazing. So wealth of information right there. And Cristina, oh my gosh, I learned so much from your presentation. The term DARVO is interesting, a bit scary and interesting. So anyway, my name is Julie Robinson, and I'm with Keller Williams. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak today. Thank you, Elizabeth and Megan and everybody who has invited me here. A little bit about me. I've been a realtor in the metro Atlanta area for over 20 years. And I've lived here all my life, right? So I was born in Atlanta. I lived in Roswell, moved to Marietta, went back to Atlanta, and then moved back to Marietta. So I'm actually in Marietta now. And, like I said, I've been doing this for a while. So I've seen the ups and downs of the market. And I really love and have a passion for what I do. Over the course of these 2 decades that I've been doing this, I've really found of course, right now my doorbell would ring and my dog is hopefully not going to go crazy. But I've had a passion for helping people, helping people through the process of their move, finding their new house, selling their old house, and really starting them on the next chapter of their life has really been a lot of fun for me. And I've met some amazing people along the way, right? A little bit about me. I've got 3 kids, and my oldest daughter is 25, my middle daughter is 22, and my youngest is my son, who is 18. That was my dog, Winston, that you just saw in the background walk across the window because he's concerned about whoever just knocked on the door. So 3 kids, but they're older. And I have been, let's see, I was married for 10 years, and I've now been divorced for 13 years, right? So it's been a minute. But I remember all the things that you go through during the divorce. And wow, Cristina, I just can't even tell you how much some of that just struck a nerve with me. So that was very interesting. And but during that time, 13 years ago during this divorce, it was really, really unnerving, unsettling. I felt not like myself for just about a year, right? So during that time, what I wanted is really stability for my kids. And because at the time they were little, and we wanted to keep them in the same school districts and really provide some stability for all 3 of them. And that was a really, really difficult thing to do with all the emotional and all the changes that I was going through during the divorce that took about a year. So I think the divorce itself took a year. And then after that, I didn't feel like myself for another year. So it was a lot. And during that year for me, I did move, which was extremely difficult. I think, what do they say about the top 3 things that that cause stress in your life? It's a move, it's divorce, and the other one is probably job change or job loss. I had a job change, not a job loss, but I switched companies, moved, and divorced all in the same year. So it was quite a bit for me and quite a bit for the kids. And I know that having somebody to be there in that process with somebody going through that, like a realtor is a realtor, yes, but I also get very close to my clients sometimes, and a lot of times, and they become friends. And I really have a lot of empathy for people, and going through that process is a lot to manage. And helping somebody with that if necessary. I mean, like what Bill said, the judge wants the kids to stay in the home, right, of the primary caregiver, right? But that always isn't the case. It can't be the case. Due to finances or due to other reasons, there may be a move involved. So when that happens, it's a stressful moment for everybody. And for me to be a part of a process like that for somebody, I feel like I can really relate, right? So yeah. So I don't know if you have those slides, Elizabeth. I have a couple of slides. The first one should be Kelly.
Sure, give me just a moment.
Okay, thank you. So what I wanted to do is give you guys just a little picture of a couple of women that I've helped over the years, and their little just a little bit about them. Not too much, but this was a move that I helped Kelly with in 2019. She's a friend, and her situation was that she had this big house, 2-story on a full finished basement, right? That was her marital home. And when she divorced, she wanted to stay in the home, but she really couldn't because your finances split, right? So his income was here, her income was here, and she couldn't afford to keep the house, really, is what it boiled down to. So she wanted a easy to maintain smaller home, right? So this particular house that she found was perfect for her because it was, at the time, it was 243, right? Of course, this house is worth, well into the fours by now, but it's a ranch, and ranches are typically a little bit easier to maintain because they're smaller and everything is kind of accessible. So it's smaller utilities, less costly to maintain. And she also did a job change during this time, so she needed to be closer to her new job, and this provided that for her as well. And she likes to walk. That's how, I met her a long time ago, but we like to walk together. So she likes to go to Lita Thompson up in Roswell. So this house was close to Lita Thompson for her. So this was an amazing move. And Kelly wasn't concerned with schools anymore. She did school choice, which is an option for some people, and was able to keep her kids in the schools that she wanted to keep her kids in. So this worked out well for her. And during that process, she started her next chapter, right? So then we've got Pam. Pam is on that second slide. Okay, so Pam, she is a pretty cool lady, and she was married to her husband for, I don't know, 35 years, a long time. And all of her friends in the neighborhood and in the area that she was in were kind of friends in as a couple. You have your girlfriends or your male friends or whatever it is, but her friends were intertwined as couples with her ex-husband. So she really wanted out of that dynamic. She wanted her own new fresh start, right? So we found her a community with all these activities in it, right? She's up in Woodstock, and she's got pool, tennis, pickleball, right? Which is kind of the standard on a lot of neighborhoods. But in addition, this particular neighborhood has clubs, right? So she joined, the card club, the bunco club, whatever it was, the book club, so she met other women and friends in her new neighborhood. And it was really, really key for her to kind of, she didn't have to, let me clarify, not all women have to move, not all men have to move after the divorce, but some people, regardless of finances, still want kind of that fresh start. They want like a new chapter in their life to where they can start over. This one provided lawn service, and she had no intentions of doing her lawn, so that was pretty good for her too. So she just pays an extra amount, which is mandatory, and she gets her lawn done for her. So both these women were amazing women to work with, and I feel as though I worked well with them, not only because, like, Kelly was my good friend. Pam, I knew, but I got to know during the process. So I feel like I really could relate to these ladies in a way that made a lot of sense for them at the time, because I had gone through a divorce myself. And, you know, planning ahead for these kind of things is really critical. You can't always plan really, really far in advance, right? But if you know that this is coming down the pipeline, I love helping people before it's actually, oh my gosh, we have to sell and buy next month. So helping people a year out, 6 months out, whatever that time frame is something that I like to do as well. I'm like a very, I'm patient. I'm a patient person. I'm not like a high pressure sales person at all. I mean, I'm more like, okay, let's think this through and let's figure out how we can prepare and plan for the move versus, having to do it so quickly. Right. So I really feel like, to have the opportunity to help women or men going through a divorce is really something that's in my wheelhouse, because first of all, I've been there, and secondly, I do know the process of being able to help somebody sell and help somebody buy kind of at the same time, and because I've been doing this for quite a while. So another thing I'd like to mention to you guys is I have a group of vendors. Okay. So I have a really good lender that can answer lender questions. Okay. So if you have questions about, can I afford this? Should I do this? Should I think about buying this kind of property, or any kind of financial questions as to how to set yourself up for success with your next move, I can help with that too. Real estate attorney specific for real estate can help answer some questions involving real estate as well. So I have somebody that does that, and I have plenty of vendors, right? So a lot of people get into the situation to where they might feel like they need to do some things to their house before they sell it, right? I've got an organizer lady. I've got all kinds of contractors that I know and have used and trust. So I want you guys to feel free to reach out to me even before you're ready. I would love to have a conversation with you ahead of time to be able to help any of you guys, walk through this process and plan for it and think about it going forward. So, so I'd love that opportunity. I did not put a slide up here with my information on it, but hopefully
Yeah.
maybe we can send a PowerPoint presentation or some contact information afterwards.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So we have just run out of time for any live questions, but for anyone who is still on with us right now, feel free to put one in the Q&A, and we're happy to connect you with the person who would be answering that question. I will again send out an email this afternoon with everyone's contact information for these amazing panelists, so you can reach out to them if you need their services. I hope you all had a great time, had learned some really good information, and we really appreciate everyone for being on with us today.
Thank you, Julie. That was outstanding too.
Thank you. Thank
Cheers.
you, guys.
All right, thank you, everyone. And I think that's it for us today. Have a great afternoon, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.